All right. Hello, everybody. Good to be back after CES and a week off for the holidays. I think it was a week or two we took off of the streams. Changed a little bit of my setup here for live streaming. Had a few difficulties getting that set up, but had a really great time at CES. And I was mentioning this to a couple people. It's just like, you know, back in the day, Apple used to have their developer conference in downtown San Francisco at the Moscone Center. And the Apple developer community wasn't nearly as big as it is today. And so 5,000 people or so at the WWDC conference could quickly encompass a lot of the Apple developer community. And so it was kind of a nice event, a community event every year where you got to see a lot of your favorite other developers and then like podcasts or other people you followed in the industry and catch up with people and have a lot of great conversations and time together. And I'm starting to get that same kind of feeling with CES for Apple and smart home tech and like creators in that space, sort of tangential to that space too, maybe creators more on the Apple side, creators more on the smart home side. It was really fun. And also wanted to give a quick shout out to Zoos Smart Home, getzoos.com. Oh, whoops. That's not what I want. But is it not? Their website is not working. Thesmarthouse.com. Here we go. Zoos hosted a number of events for us as creators, especially Sunday night was really fun. And so I just wanted to like give them I never actually ended up posting anything about it. And so thank you, Zoos, for some great events. The smarthouse.com is where you can go check out a lot of their Z-Wave and other products. So with that, though, have a lot of other stuff to get into. And speaking of, I want to do a lot more with these live streams in 2025, making them more entertaining for you and getting to some of your questions here in a minute. But I'm going to start having guests as well to join in the conversation, also answer your questions, and then also maybe talk about whatever they're up to recently in their smart home or in videos or whatever they're making online. So next week, we have Mr. George Langebier joining us. So that should be fun to have him joining. So great to have George joining. And we'll be hopefully getting a lot more folks here on the channel as guests. So that should be I'm excited about that. And I think it'll be a fun added element to these live streams. I'm going to say hi to some of you guys in the chat. Hey, Saul. Oh, yeah, it's cold out there too. Yeah, I'm sure it's still better than here. Today was like a warm day for Illinois this time of year. It got up to 30-something. Next week, it's going to get chilly again, down to 0 and whatever. So it's always a nice time to kind of stress test outdoor smart home tech, though. It was funny because I was talking to Nanoleaf about their outdoor string lights at CES, and I was like, they're based in Toronto, so they have about the same weather that we do in Illinois. And mentioning that I was going to take in my outdoor string lights just because of the cold winter. I'm like, I don't know how they're going to handle the really cold temperatures, and they seemed to suggest that it was fine. I'm not saying that's what their support documents are saying or anything, official that Nanoleaf says what the products are rated for. But yeah, so I'm going to give it a shot and see if these string lights survive the winter, just staying out there. And if they do, either way, I'll let you guys know how it goes. But that's the extent of my stress testing that I'm really interested in. I think there's maybe a handful of other products that'll be interesting to just see what happens to them in the winter. Hello from Vegas. Speaking of CES, James, nice to see you here in the chat. Hey, Brian. So I don't know. I've been feeling a little bit like, do I have something? Do I not this week? But overall, thank goodness, I'm feeling well. I think in part maybe my children tend to suck up all the germs in the Chicago area and bring them into our house. And so I'm exposed to a lot through October, November, December. So maybe what I saw at CES is all stuff I've had before. I don't know. Yeah, that, because we definitely had a lot of sickness going through our house in December. It was going to have speaking of guests, we're going to have my wife on the live stream before everything happened, where we got sick, and then we had CES, and maybe I got the CES flu early. I don't know. Hey, Ratchet Gang, nice to see you here. Brandon Doyle, thank you. Hello. And thank you so much, Brandon, for a lot of behind-the-scenes planning for a lot of stuff last week at CES. It was really nice to have Brandon just taking care of a lot of the details of, hey, we're all going to meet up here or do this thing, and that was great. Brian, nice to see you here. And Robert, good afternoon from Australia. Yeah, speaking of much nicer weather, I'm sure, than here right now. Yes, that tropical heat wave, Brandon, I'm sure you get it up in Minnesota. Maybe you do, I don't know. It's probably warmer than usual. But you get worse cold weather than we do, for sure, I imagine. Yeah, I want to get to the Aqara display, and also another Aqara product that I didn't really... I like cut it out of my video because I didn't think it was that interesting. Then a number of other creators talked about it. And I have some more details to add on it, and that's the G100. So we'll get to that in a little bit. We also have a bunch of news to talk about. We also have, and then of course at the end of the live stream, as I'm trying to make a new tradition, I want to share with you a video on YouTube that's not directly smart home related, but I still think you'd be interested in to go check out after this live stream. So I'll link that at the end. Oh yes. And Brandon, I need to get on that, thing. I haven't done that yet. So I will do that soon enough. A number of other, hold on. There's my Ecamm Live is being weird here. Let's see. Okay. Oh yes. I need to select a video source for this. Great. There we go. One quick correction that I want to make, speaking of my CES coverage, is that these Caseta Smart Shades, their PR firm, contacted me just to let me know that you can get Caseta Smart Shades up to 96 inches by 104 inches. It's just going to get a little bit above that $400 starting price. If you want to stick to the $400 starting price, it means no blackout. Blackout costs an extra $30. And then the sizes that I initially reported, which was 48 inches by 80 inches. So you can get a little bit bigger, and you might have already played with some of this design and buy stuff on their website. Of course, you don't have that many colors to choose from. So you can choose, let's say, honeycomb and blackout. Let's just do this gray. And you have some different options here between gray and gray. Oh, those are the blackout or light filtering. Okay. So blackout gray for honeycomb. Let's just say outside mount on the trim. And then I'd measure the stuff, and then you get the price. So very similar configurator to Serena Shades, if you've ever ordered those or played with their configurator. But yeah, just some details there that I wanted to correct on the Caseta wireless shades, but they are available for order now. I'm hoping to get some to check out on the channel, but I'm still waiting to hear back on the details of all that with Lutron. But the big news, speaking of another company that Lutron talks to in their Caseta system, Sonos. So their CEO is now out, stepped down, as the term is now, the trendy term to say that you're leaving the company sort of under duress. So Patrick Spence is out, and then the new CEO, Tom Conrad, is a board member and seems to be really involved in the product stuff already too. The chief product officer at Sonos also left, Maxime Bova-Merlin. I just guessing on the name there. I'm sorry, I should should know how to pronounce that. But yeah, so he left as well. And, I think some of this is certainly the app. A lot of people are blaming the app, but I think it's also a little bit more maybe some of the, I don't know if headphones were a good idea, and I just think the company's been struggling to find growth. I think the Arc Ultra was such a great move for Sonos, and it's doing what they're really good at. And maybe they do need to expand into new markets in order to grow, but I also think they should sort of stay in their lane to a certain extent and do what they're really good at, which is really great speakers, and make more options of those. Because you might be wondering, if you're new to the stream or something, why does someone like myself, who's all in the Apple ecosystem, why don't I just have a bunch of HomePods and just do all Apple smart home speakers? And that's because, in large part, Sonos is very fast, much faster, much more reliable for multi-room playback. You can quickly expand or change which rooms things are playing in, and it's also much more reliable at keeping things in sync. I've had multiple cases where the audio gets out of sync with AirPlay. It's not very common, but it definitely happens. In Sonos, it never happens. And then the other thing is that Sonos has a wide variety of speakers that work. Of course, Apple has a bunch of AirPlay 2 compatible speakers out there on the market. I mean, that Apple does not make. And then there's the HomePod and HomePod Mini from Apple, but you have so many more options direct from Sonos. And of course, all those Sonos speakers also work as AirPlay 2 speakers. I heard a lot of Apple fans, during this whole app controversy last year, just say, well, I just use AirPlay for my Sonos speakers. I still use the app from Sonos a decent amount, but especially because playback on their speakers, I find it easier to just go find the music I'm looking for in the app, like in my favorites or something, rather than getting their voice assistant to find it, because that's a little tricky sometimes. But yeah. Anyways, we'll see what happens with Sonos. It's a bummer to see someone, like Patrick Spence lose his job, but I'm excited for the new leadership and what that brings. It's interim CEO right now, but could be long-term. And of course, via the information, last thing on Sonos really quick, John Gruber over at Daring Fireball surfaced an interesting rumor from the information from Nick Wingfield over at The Information about how it's probably Scott Forstall was really interested in convincing Steve Jobs to buy Sonos, because Sonos started in 2002, I think it is. 2002. And that Steve, was not interested. But imagine if Apple bought Sonos instead of Beats, what a different world we'd live in so many different ways. So how things like that could compound over time. But so Brandon's saying we love our Sonos speakers. The Air 100, I think the Air 100 is an underrated speaker, because it came out with the 300. I think the 300 got a lot of attention. The Air 100, I think, sounds better than a HomePod, but everybody's opinions are subjective. The HomePod, full-size HomePod, also sounds amazing. I agree. Sometimes the Amazon connection's flaky for you. Yeah, I've haven't really used the Amazon connection too much myself, but yeah, I wish Apple would have bought Sonos, Brian. I think it could have really boosted Apple's multi-room audio playback reliability, and I think if Apple was the most reliable for multi-room playback, that could really have changed the HomePod story in terms of people would then be maybe more interested in the HomePod. I mean, the HomePod's great in and of itself, but I think it's not best in class, I guess you could say, for multi-room audio necessarily, depending on what you're looking for. Anyone use Beats, Ratchet Gang? That's an interesting question. Anybody in the chat into Beats headphones? I've bought a couple of Beats headphones over the years just because I have a headphone problem, and I'll get excited about a pair of Beats that I want. Future guest on the live stream next week, George, I know, is big into sneakers, and I've had a similar fetish over the years of lots of different types of headphones. So I've played with the Studio Pro 3s. I think is the latest one that I got earlier in 2024, but I don't know. I'm not really into Beats headphones like I am AirPods. I think AirPods these days are so good. They've kind of eliminated a lot of my desire to have lots of other headphones. But yeah, I mean, in the high-end headphones, you can get headphones that sound better than AirPods, and that's a price category I just don't play in. But I know it's out there, and I've played with some of them, but I've never owned anything super fancy with headphones. I just paired a Sonos Move 2 with a Beam 2 in my backyard. Oh, nice. That's cool. Yeah, so that sounds like a nice setup for some music. An Apple subwoofer would cost $4,000. Yeah, exactly. If Sonos is charging, like $1,200 or whatever, $1,000 for a subwoofer, I can't remember how much Sonos subwoofer is. Maybe it's $800, but yeah, Apple would clearly make something that expensive, especially back in the day with Johnny Ive there, focused on so much of the high end of Apple products. I think that would certainly be something that happens. Yes, and I agree. Both the 300 and the 100s are good. It just it depends on the room size. I think the 300s, Era 300s, the Sonos speakers are some of the best spatial audio speakers that are not TV speakers. Now, of course, you can use Era 300s as rears in a Dolby Atmos surround system, a very high-end surround system, but just listening to an Era 300 in a room with Dolby Atmos music, it does sound really cool if you just want to sit there and listen to the music. And even in a smaller room, just like the one Era 300 can fill the room and give you a little bit of that surround feel in a way that you probably wouldn't expect from a speaker its size. Beats are... I don't think Beats are very comfortable. I think the best use for a lot of Beats are workout headphones or headphones that you're going to sweat in, maybe like doing yard work or other things. They're not quite the same materials and quite the same flexibility often as other headphones like that. So, but they come in lots of fun colors and lots of fun styles. So that can be fun. Edgar's Home Tech, speaking of the smart home community that we, I had dinner right across from Edgar on Sunday night at CES, which was a lot of fun. So nice to see you here. Since Apple acquired audio gear from Monster, they should be receiving the Monster Turbine Pro Gold Edition earbuds. Yeah, that would be... I've forgotten. I didn't realize that actually happened, that Apple acquired that. But yeah, that'd be funny. So we got another thing that we tend to talk about on this live stream. I don't really talk about it much on my channel, but is photo and video gear. And especially I like to point out things that might be something you'd be interested in if you're like getting into being a video creator, or also just want to have like good videos or photos of your family, other events or things you do in life. Can be a common thing. You want to tell stories through video these days. Might not be what you want to do for a full-time job or even being a creator. But one product that came out today that I think is interesting. I'm going to be playing with one, I think, but and that's the Insta360 Flow 2 Pro. Now, there's an Apple angle here that is worth calling out, and that's this. This is the second gimbal from Insta360, and that supports Apple's dock kit, which you might remember Belkin was the first one to ship a dock kit little thing, and it's like this. I actually have it in a drawer over there. I should have brought it out. Hold on, maybe I can grab it. So this is the, here, let's try this thing now. Whoops. So this is the Belkin, what was this called? Stand Pro, Belkin Stand Pro with dock kit. I got this last year, I guess. I barely use it. It is not not very useful, I think, just in the form factor of it. But the idea is that you put it on here, you tap your iPhone to pair it, and then your iPhone sits, like horizontal on here, and then it can track you and follow you around the room and get video of you. And I thought at first, oh, this could be really cool for Apple TV FaceTime. That was like my idea, but it's just such an effort to set it up. I don't think anybody doing a FaceTime call on Apple TV is really going to do this much. So I don't know. I don't think this was really the form factor for Dock Kit, but seeing things about the Insta360 Flow and that gimbal, I think it could be a really good form factor for it. And then they've updated it now with more features and has a like a nice little mirror on the other side. So if you're filming the rear camera, you can sort of see if you're in frame, or like that you look okay, whatever, your hair's fine when you're filming. They also have like some improved tracking inside of the Insta360 Flow app, or I guess the Insta360 app, where you can do even better or more detailed tracking of like you want someone in a particular part of the frame. So even beyond Dock Kit. But the nice part about Dock Kit, of course, is like, as they're showing here, you can use it in like the Instagram app. You can use it in the basic Apple camera app or any of the other camera apps out there on iPhone. So it's a handy feature that it integrates with Dock Kit, and just an interesting gimbal if you're looking at filming video with your iPhone. Having something that stabilizes it can make it look a lot better, especially if you're doing things like following young children or, just trying to film a walking shot on, let's say, like a vacation where you're walking down a path or something, you want it to be steady. You can totally do all of that with your iPhone just handheld. And a lot of it's going to look fine these days. The inbuilt stabilization in iPhone is pretty good. But this is going to take it to that next level and give you some options like selfie sticks, and of course taking pictures with other people, and you put it up there as a tripod. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see, but just something to call out if you're into taking videos with your iPhone. It's $170 I think right now, retail price. So just a heads up that is a new product and supports Apple's Dock Kit. So yeah, and yeah, I agree, John. Nice to see you here. I've used Apple TV FaceTime a couple of times. It's a cool idea. I like that Apple has it. I think it could be practical in certain cases, but generally speaking, I just haven't had a need to use it very much. So oh yes. Eric, Modern Day Tech. Yes, he FaceTimes you, Brandon. That's funny. Yeah, and that's a good question, Ratchet Gang. Yeah, I see some folks just not FaceTiming a lot. It's something I've been surprised at, especially when I was in Las Vegas. And I see this too in like different parts of Chicago. How many people are out in public and FaceTiming on cellular data, just using that as the way they use their phone, right? The phone is now the science fiction, so to speak, video phone. You just hold it up and there it is. So I don't know. I think maybe we're all just kind of self-selecting nerd audience that doesn't use FaceTime as much as other people. But it's another use case for the Dock Kit option, by the way, and it can be really cool too. That was another cool use case that I think Nikias highlighted in his video, but which, by the way, Insta360 tends to be a very sponsorship heavy company. So a lot of the launch videos you see today, I mean, the creators disclose usually, but keep in mind, I think pretty much all the launch videos from today from that new gimbal are sponsored videos. And that's just how Insta360 does it. So there's more showcases than reviews. But it could be cool if you do a lot of presentations for work or something and you want to walk around a room to demo something bigger, then this could be a quick way. You just have this on a table and it can follow you and be your webcam for the presentation, because Dock Kit works with continuity camera. Hence my interest in the Belkin Stand Pro that we just talked about. So speaking of iPhone stuff, we'll get this out of the way and then there's some more smart home news to get to. But I talked last time we had a live stream, I talked about how I just got this OtterBox Statement Cactus leather case. And it's actually turned out pretty well. Like, I used it through CES. It came out the week before CES. I didn't realize it was that new, but I knew it was like relatively new release. But I ran into an OtterBox press person at CES, and they, at I think it was PepCom, and they were impressed that I had this, and they're going to send me some other OtterBox related stuff with it. They'll probably talk about it on the, some point if I like it. But I'm very pleased about how this is worn. It's much softer than it was at first. At first, when I got this, it was kind of like hard plastic. But if you don't remember what I was talking about previously, this is cactus leather, so it's not actual leather, but it's also apparently very environmentally friendly, where the cactus, of course, is grown in the desert, where it doesn't take up real estate from agricultural crops. And then it's has a, I can't remember all the stats and details of what makes it so environmentally friendly. But my one concern, not knowing very much about the plants, is just like, I think cacti take a while to grow. So how is that going to work if like Apple were to use this in their cases to replace fine woven, which I think they should do if they could get enough of it, but like, is there enough cacti growing in the world that could be harvested for this sustainably to make enough cases for Apple? I don't know. But, OtterBox has put the nice buttons on here. It's like the old Apple leather cases where you have those nice, it's not really focusing on it, but like these nice leather buttons, or not leather, nice metal buttons on the case that feel like the old Apple leather case. So still a cutout for the camera control, so doesn't have a cover there. But anyways, I don't want to, this is not an iPhone case channel, but I know obviously a lot of you guys use iPhones. So I want to report back on my experience there. And I'd be curious too, like if you guys have cases you like, models you like, share them in the chat. Probably be nice to hear other options if you found one that works really well for your iPhone. Yes, just don't sit on the cactus. Great, wise words. So, yeah, and it's funny. John mentions that the OtterBox doesn't always make the most beautiful cases. I agree. I think this is a very fashionable case, and I wouldn't usually think of OtterBox as like a fashionable case company. They're like, how do you protect your phone so I could throw it across the room and it's not going to break, right? That's OtterBox. It's like the rugged cases, but I think it's great that they're doing this. So, and it's interesting because they're carried so early on in the product launch from Apple. I don't know, was this something kind of like Apple does with Belkin and Logitech and other companies where they're like, please make this for us, don't tell anybody, but you're going to do this. I don't know. Who knows what happened behind the scenes? I have no inside info there. But another product that I use that is now back, sort of, I thought this thing was going to die, and Google is not going to do anything about it because Google loves to kill products. But the Google Nest Protect smoke alarm is now going to be coming to the Google Home app. I tried to add it to my Google Home app, but it's not adding. You can add this, of course, in the hey Chris, nice to see you. Yes, I'm still rocking the UniFi network. I've not upgraded to network 9. So we'll see. I guess I need to buckle up, and hopefully I won't have any issues there. But yeah, so really quick on the Google Nest Protect. I got a house back in 2018 that had a bunch of these pre-installed, and I've gotten like one or two since then. The advantage of a smart smoke detector in the era of when so many devices, including your HomePods, can detect smoke alarms from a non-smart smoke alarm isn't very big. There's not a huge advantage, but one advantage that we have found is that if one of your smoke alarms detects an alarm all of them will make the sound, which can be annoying, but it can also be very nice in an emergency, right? Because if there's a fire in the basement, let's say down here, and we're all up on the second floor sleeping, it would wake all of us up right away, even if we didn't necessarily hear it right away from a smoke alarm down in the basement. And they all sort of stay in touch and use the lithium batteries, or you can also get powered versions. So they're now available in the Google Home app. Apparently they're coming. I've tried to add it to my Google Home app, but it's still just in the Nest app for me. So here, let me show you what that looks like. I have iPhone mirroring up. So, and you can use the Starling Home Hub, as we've talked about previously, to, let's see, to do this. But this is like my Nest Protect, where I can see different Nests that I have and their status. So nothing very exciting at this point. The Nest app is very boring because everything's moved over to Google Home that's Nest related. But yeah, those are coming to Google Home, and I thought Google was sure to have abandoned those. So that's good to hear. And I think if you live in the US, we don't have a lot of smoke alarm options. This is probably maybe the one to go with. I would say, though, at this point, with so many devices like HomePods and Echoes and stuff detecting the smoke alarm, just keep your non-smart smoke detectors and then rely on those devices to detect it if you're away from home. Of course, these you get an alert if you're away from home, which was a benefit back in the day before that happened. So yeah, I'd love to hear in the chat if anybody's upgraded to UniFi 9 network version 9. I have not yet, but it sounds like a problem according to Chris. So we'll see what happens. But hey, Modern Day Tech. Speaking of folks I saw in Vegas, nice to see you here, Eric, Modern Day Tech, and Suf Bay Dad, another regular here. Nice to see you here. Yeah, I'm glad the Nest Protect. Yeah, you can use them in the Nest Protects with Starling. That is a nice integration, as I mentioned. So, and let's see. So another thing I wanted to get to quickly was just Homey. Man, the Homey team does not slow down. They just keep going with new updates. And today they announced that ThinQ, their LG TVs, now work with Homey. And there was I think it was in the press release or one of the things, there was a little quote from LG that I think I want to read really quickly and then explain why I think it's important. But in that it says, Homey Flow, Advanced Flow, which is just the mouthful of terms here is ridiculous, but let's continue. Homey Flow and Advanced Flow simplify the automation of LG ThinQ devices. For example, users can choose to automatically dim their Philips Hue or IKEA lights, close their Aqara or SwitchBot-powered curtains, and set the LG HVAC system to the right setting when turning on their LG TV, instantly transforming their home into a personal cinema. Furthermore, the LG washer finishes a load, Homey can blink a light and send a notification to the users, keeping them always informed. And it goes on and on. But it's just, I think we're kind of going to see a little bit of a war is a strong word, but a battle between Home Assistant and Homey in 2025 and maybe beyond in terms of what is the good sort of default advanced smart home user platform, right? You start in some major smart home ecosystem, you get annoyed by the limitations, you want to get something more elaborate and do more with automation. So do you go Home Assistant or do you go Homey Pro Mini, Homey Pro, that whole line of things. And we'll see how that all plays out. I think both sides have some room to grow and some things to add. And I think it'll be fun to watch to see that each side kind of have different competing features. I could make an argument of why either one would win. I think Home Assistant has so much momentum and so many people working on it from an open source perspective that could help keep them going forward. Of course, Homey has an open source component, but Homey now, because they're owned by LG, has that LG integration where not everybody's going to go buy LG stuff, right, because of Homey, but I think it could be an interesting selling point, especially for people who might be attracted to Homey because they like sort of that out of the box. It looks nice. It just works. It's all sort of like, I mean, it doesn't just work in some cases, but like it's a more tailored manufactured experience that kind of maybe appeals to, let's say, Apple users. And so in that case, you're like getting a new home. And it's like, well, I need to buy a washer and dryer for my new home and I want to do a Homey home. So let's just get LG washer and dryer and let's just get an LG TV. And you could see how it's not going to be for everybody, but if you were able to go down that road and just buy the LG stuff, well, because it just works with my Homey Pro, why not? I don't think that's the reason necessarily that LG bought Homey, but I think it's probably one of a list of reasons, and it's an edge that Homey can have because they can have those integrations in a way that maybe other platforms like Home Assistant can't. So just something to keep an eye on, and I thought was an interesting point from today's news around LG. So, got the UniFi 3C Pro camera. Thinking it would work with HomeKit. Yeah, that is a bummer that the 3C does not work with HomeKit. There's the S3 Pro, I think is the one, and then there's a new indoor one that Lifehackster just reviewed, and I always forget what the model number is. But there's only a couple UniFi cameras so far that support Apple HomeKit. You could potentially, I can't remember if the 3C is supported by the Home Assistant plugin. If you run Home Assistant, maybe you could do that through UniFi, but or maybe I can't remember if there could be some other options there, but yeah, you're not going to get the native HomeKit integration there. Not upgraded the new Zone firewall. Okay, James, I read more. Yeah. Okay, your UDM Pro's on 4.1.13. Okay, well, that's good. Good to hear. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do the Zone firewall. And another interesting announcement from Ubiquiti today, which doesn't really apply to like most smart home users, is their new UniFi Talk system, where like now you can integrate your UniFi Talk phones really easily with a lot of other VoIP providers like Zoom and stuff. So I don't know, exciting for those people who talk on the phone. I got a UniFi Talk phone a while ago as like a display to show my UniFi cameras, but it ended up being so much of a pain to maintain that on a residential Comcast connection, which continued to want to just boot that off the network and not let it connect to the outside internet, that I just, and I'm sure I could have like shooted it more and then gotten it to work on Comcast. But of course, Comcast wants you to buy their VoIP product. And so I was just like, I don't need this enough to spend the time to make it work. So I stopped using that phone, but they're cool hardware, and good for them for adding that. Yeah, I agree with Brandon. John, you should probably return your UniFi cameras at some point soon. So, man, time flies. We've already been going 40 minutes. And I actually realized there was, like a few days before I went to CES, I realized that there's a bunch of people who've asked questions in advance, sitting in my email inbox that I like hadn't gone through. And there's actually some good questions there. So we'll be getting to those in a future episode. It'll be like very late for those people, but I think interesting, which I'm sorry about if you're one of those people who's gone to ericw.org/live and left a question. If you do that now, it will come through and it will be properly prioritized and flagged. But it wasn't for a little bit there. So we have a few of those to make up for lost time coming next week. There's enough other stuff to talk about this week that was like, oh, let's just dive into the CES stuff. And what I teased at the beginning, which we haven't gotten to yet, is this new Aqara camera that I wanted to talk about. So let me pull up this video here. How is this not? Okay. Back to live mode. All right. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. Let me pull this up.
Entry level.
All right, there we go. I was muted the whole time. So I was just talking about can you hear me now? No video or audio. Bummer. All right. Does this work? Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. All right, how's this now? Okay. Cool. So I tried to play this video and it like froze and then it just like muted my audio when I muted the video audio. So just a whole mess, but I'm going to open this video in Safari because a web browser can view a video and that works. So let's see how this goes. But yeah, I don't know where I cut off, but just really quick, long story short, the G100 is coming later this year, probably after the G5. It will probably cost less, but we don't know the pricing yet. It's going to be powered by USB-C, but the key thing is that it's going to be like splash proof. So great for like a patio or something that's partially covered, maybe a little bit like outside, depending on the weather you have in your where you live. But it's not going to be something that's going to be as like extreme for the elements, direct sunlight and heat, and really cold weather as the G5 will probably be. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about like if you're interested in either of these cameras, what they're for. But yeah, I'm guessing the G100 will be a little cheaper than that. So I'm going to stick to playing. I was trying, there's a feature, I use Ecamm Live for streaming, and there's a feature in Ecamm where you can play a video as part of your stream. And that was something there that I did probably on that, just blew up. So yeah. we'll stick to playing videos in Safari for the time being. And with that, I don't have much else to talk about. Is there anybody who has any questions before we go to the video that I want to recommend? Oh, Lone Star Trent, thanks for joining. Nice to see you here. Yeah, and sorry for the technical glitch, guys, earlier. Okay, so you heard the 1, 2, 3 testing. Great. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for and yeah, Waterball 365. Thanks for joining too. Yeah, another regular. Good to see you here. So for the video, let me tee up like why did I pick this video for you to go watch? Oh, and I'll get to Brian's question quickly too. I think what is my favorite tech at CES? I don't really do favorites. But the thing that I'm most excited about for 2025, I think coming out of CES, like the product trend, I guess you could say, is probably, this actually gets something Brian was talking about earlier, which is the smart home displays from Aqara, which I talked a little bit about in my CES videos, but I'm really excited about how many products have the option for Matter buttons. And Aqara's displays, they had a bunch of examples, and I should have had a video clip ready to play for this, but they had a bunch of examples in their booth where it's just like a bunch of Matter buttons that are software configurable or that you can have on the display, and you hit them, but it's exposed to a Matter ecosystem like Apple Home as a button. And I think that, there's that, and like the Flick Loom, or not Flick, the Flick button, of course, the Flick Duo that came out, but then also things like the LifeX Luna, the lamp from LifeX that has 2 buttons on the top that you can program to be what you want. I think there's a lot of options for buttons, and I think buttons are a nice form of automation because you can get them to do stuff in your smart home. And I call them automations, but I know that's a little bit of a stretch, technically speaking. But you can get them to do stuff in your smart home when you want them to. Not when, because sometimes my life at least is very unpredictable, especially with children. And so to say that every time a motion sensor detects motion before 12 noon, if, then turn on this scene, like there could be a million different reasons why that's not a good idea and would annoy people who I live with. So having a button, then I know the context of when I'm hitting that button or double pressing that button or whatever. And you can change some conditions to that, but it can be a really nice way to get what you want from your smart home when you want it. And especially once you get to a point where like a room or two or all of your home is like all smart lighting. And then it's like you go from, it feels like you're in a theater or something where you go from like dim lighting to bright lighting to colored lighting to, all these different options as you're cycling through different scenes. It can be kind of fun. So I'm excited about that. That's the thing from CES. It's the biggest thing. And yeah, I think, so I think the other thing with Aqara's displays, Aqara's, back to Brian's question at the beginning, I think Aqara's bigger display got a lot of attention because it's bigger. But I think the sleeper hit for Aqara isn't even necessarily the wheel, because that's another cool concept. It looks really cool, fun to show on video. But their little switch that has a 1.3 inch display and 2 buttons for controlling the light, that replaces a standard single gang light switch in the US. And it doesn't need to be used with Aqara's switch plate. So depending on the price, we'll see what that costs. But like you could have a bunch of switches or, replace a bunch of your smart switches in the wall with these Aqara switches. And then you have this smart display, which has a bunch of scenes that are basically Matter buttons that you can cycle through. Press any of those buttons to trigger a scene. Of course, it can have a picture and a label with it, which is nice for people to be able to see and understand. And then like, you still have the physical controls for the light. And I think that could be one of those that's like the least compelling to show on video of like, hey, look at all this cool new tech from CES. But I think that little smart display from Aqara could be a really nice product for a lot of people. So we'll see how it actually turns out when it ships and all that stuff. But That's funny. It's a good point, Edgar. I was really excited about their border router plug, and I should have asked Aqara, but they didn't have really anything about that in their booth this year that I remember seeing. Maybe you saw it, Edgar, or someone else can chime in, but I don't, maybe that fell by the wayside, or just didn't get the traction that they'd hoped in sort of interest after last year's CES. So then they didn't actually release it. I think sometimes the companies certainly do that at CES. They'll show off a product in its early stages to see, like, is it worth it for us to ship this or not? So, oh, cool. Nice. You got a SwitchBot table. Very cool, Brandon. Yeah, those are fun too. I think it's a clever idea. I don't know how in practice, how useful it will be. I mean, I'm sure people will come up with creative ideas to use those SwitchBot tables, but we'll see. Those are for those who are not familiar, it's like SwitchBot basically has a platform that then the robot vacuum can be the motor underneath and drive it around. And it can have the air purifier table. It can have an iPad stand. It can have a camera, all kinds of stuff on there. And, we'll see. I'm interested to see from Brandon and others, like, how useful is that? Maybe they'll send some my way too. We'll see. Yeah, interesting. Okay. Okay, so you have the air purifier, Brandon, but you don't have the base to actually put it on there. Yeah, it's kind of a short air purifier. It's a good point for being also a table, and in a lot of cases, I think. Yeah, Nintendo Switch 2. That's a whole other topic. It's pretty exciting, but I don't know. I don't have much to add on it right now. Okay, cool. Yeah, the rotary dial adjusts the light above the coffee cart. Yeah, the Philips Hue dial is a nice little physical control too. My favorite is the Lutron Aurora dimmer, as I've talked about before in this channel, for controlling Philips Hue. It's confusing because it's a Lutron product, but it's meant for Philips Hue. It has nothing to do with Caseta Wireless. But it's really nice, just turning mechanism. Although I just had to change a battery in one of those in our kitchen earlier this week. It's kind of a pain to change the batteries in those, but the battery lasted for, I want to say it was like 2 years at least. So they last a while, but once you have, it's one of those products, it's not fun to change batteries in. You have your coffee machines plugged into smart plugs. That's nice. All right, guys. Well, speaking of CES, I don't know if you are familiar at all with the website MaxStories.net. I've been a big fan of theirs for a long time. Speaking of, they've been covering the Nintendo Switch a little bit today, but they're a great website, and just have a lot of coverage around a lot of things that you might be interested in with Apple and shortcuts. And, of course, now they're covering more portable game consoles, but Federico Vitici's been doing these amazing reviews of iOS, and then other people on the site do reviews of the other platforms from Apple each year. So great website. And they've recently gotten more into their YouTube channel. And one of the videos they published was from John Voorhees, who's I know, he used to live up near me in Chicago area. And John talked about what's in his CES bag. And this bag, I could make a channel on bags. That's another thing that I'm into. But John convinced me to pick up this bag from his coverage of it. It didn't come in time for CES, but this is the TomTalk. What is the model of this bag? But it's a really cool. Oh, whoops! My other camera shut off. Oh well. This bag is a nice size for fitting like a 13-inch iPad or a 14-inch MacBook Pro, something like that. And you can throw a bunch of stuff in it. Like he used it to fit his gimbal for his iPhone and stuff. And so obviously no one here watching this stream is going to CES anytime soon. But maybe you're going on a trip. I just found this bag and the stuff John was putting in to be a nice kind of inspirational idea for whether you're packing for a trip, you're packing for a conference for work, you're packing for, something. It's just like a nice little bag. And the bag itself, the Tompack bag, only costs like $50 usually with coupons on Amazon. So it's not a super expensive sling bag, but just a nice size and nice little ideas of like what to bring when you kind of need to cover, you want to be making some video and just keeping up with your digital life, but you don't want to pack super heavy. So I will put this in the chat and go check it out and subscribe to MaxStories over on YouTube if you haven't already. We could go on and on about bags. Maybe that's another discussion for another time. I love Peak Design as well, Brandon. I have a bunch of their stuff. So yes, I'll link the video. Here you go. And with that, thanks so much for tuning in tonight. And I'll see you next week with George Langbeer as our guest. Bye.